3 years ago, inspired by the Walstad Method, I was surprised to learn that you can have a planted aquarium without a filter, without water changes, and without using fertilizer. Because it is a self-sustaining ecosystem which only requires light, I asked myself if it would survive if I sealed it. An aquarium with a silicone-sealed lid. This would prevent water evaporation and gas exchange with the outside. Since the aquarium that houses the original ecosystem has a plastic frame and I want a perfect seal, I decided to start from scratch with a frameless aquarium. I will place the aquarium on this wooden board, which will be useful if I need to move it. I used organic soil that is usually used for growing vegetables. I'll go with the quick option and clean this substrate right in the fish tank. I used water from another fish tank. This way, the bacteria and other larger organisms in this substrate will not be destroyed. That's how I removed the air from the substrate and broke up the clumps of soil. This bowl contains a culture of Moina macrocopa. Since I won't be able to feed the fish in the aquarium because it will be hermetically sealed, I decided to increase the fish's chances of survival, so maybe they won't starve to death. It is possible that the tap water contains chlorine that kills the beneficial bacteria in the substrate. For this reason, I will leave the water in a bucket for a few days so that the chlorine evaporates. 5 days later, I noticed that the water was no longer cloudy, and Moina macrocopa could be seen swimming in the water. I expected there to be less debris. There are many large pieces that I couldn't break apart. What is more suitable for covering the fertile substrate, gravel or sand? I used small-grained gravel that I already had at home. Because it seemed to me that it wasn't enough, I added more gravel, then added the water that I had put in this bucket a few days earlier. Although I covered the water fleas with gravel, I was surprised to see that they somehow managed to come to the surface. Since I did not clean the soil beforehand, several debris came to the surface of the water. At this point, the water is toxic to fish, so first, the nitrogen cycle must be completed. I used this filter for 3 weeks, during which time I monitored the aquarium and thought about whether I should use other equipment, but also what plants and fish to put in this ecosystem. The plants come from another self-sustaining ecosystem and are adapted to grow without fertilizers or carbon dioxide additives. If you buy the same species of plants that I use, they are most likely grown with fertilizers. And when you put them in an ecosystem without fertilizers, they will suffer, which is why they need time to acclimate. I had to be very careful with the selection of plants, because once I glue the lid on, I will no longer have access to trim the plants. I want to prevent a species of plant from growing excessively and shading everything beneath it. It seems that along with the plants, I also introduced some snails. At this point, theoretically, the water is good for putting fish in. I haven't decided what fish to buy yet, but I've decided to put a shrimp in for testing. When I put the lid on, I will remove the filter, and the plants will act as a filter for the self-sustainable ecosystem. I added another 10 to 12 shrimp and turned on a water heater. For now, the plants are too small and too few to support a self-sustaining ecosystem when I remove the filter. I started noticing some worms in the water. The water temperature is set at 21 degrees Celsius. Shrimp do not need high water temperatures. On this day, I fed the shrimp in this aquarium with spirulina for the first time. The plants have grown, but now I've seen what could be a problem. There could be many reasons why this shrimp died. And these snails don't know if they are attracted to dead shrimp or if they have bred a lot. To get an idea of the water quality, I will use two water tests. One indicates the pH and the other indicates ammonia. These tests are for informational purposes only, because once I seal the lid, it will no longer be possible to make any changes to the ecosystem. Without fertilizers and without the addition of carbon dioxide, look how the plants have grown. The red color of this plant is amazing. But algae have also appeared. No more shrimp have died, so it's time to add the fish. In the store, the seller asked me for my name, address, and details about the aquarium where the fish would live, such as the water temperature, whether I use a filter, how long I have had the aquarium, and other things. After I answered, he told me he couldn't sell me the fish, so I had to find another store where I could buy fish for my aquarium. In England, only some pet shops have this policy. I don't know if it's the same in the United States. I bought 4 fish, 1 female betta splendens. I thought that a betta fish has a high chance of survival because it is exceptionally tolerant of low oxygen levels and poor water quality, owing to their special labyrinth organ. I also bought an endless guppy and a strawberry rasbora. But I also bought a fish that I know nothing about. The seller recommended it to me. Of course, as the aquarium looks now, it provides very good conditions for all the fish, even though they are of different species. Thank you to everyone who left comments on which fish to choose. At the last minute before sealing the aquarium, I realized that some plants were not suitable. So, I removed the floating plant, and this plant that grows big and fast. I had to wait a day for the water to clear up. This filter helped clean the water. As for the filter, I noticed that its power did not decrease during the entire period of use. I fed the fish every 2 days. I was a little worried that some fish might be aggressive, but it seems they are friends. This fish stays more isolated. Sometimes I don't even know where it's hiding. Since the filter is no longer needed, I will remove it. I will also add a little water as it has evaporated. My intention was for the ecosystem to have equal proportions of water and air, but I would have been wrong to do so. I calculated the water-to-soil ratio not by volume, but by measuring the height of the aquarium. The substrate should be between 5 and 10% of the height of the aquarium. Soil is essential for beneficial bacteria, the nitrogen cycle, and anchoring plants. Water should represent approximately 65 to 75% of the total volume of the tank. Water is the main habitat and provides the volume necessary for gas and nutrient exchange. That is why there must be more water than air to ensure stable conditions. For this reason, I added more water. Air between 20 and 25%. This air gap is critical for a stable, hermetically sealed system. It acts as an oxygen and carbon dioxide buffer, allowing for gas exchange between the water and the atmosphere above the surface. Without it, pressure buildup and gas imbalances from photosynthesis cycles would quickly doom the system. The most important thing is light. Plants need light. Because the fish are tropical, the water needs to be heated. I will use a new heater. The only problem with the heater is that without a filter, there is no movement in the water. Can something bad happen? For safety reasons, I will put this water pump next to the heater before closing the aquarium hermetically. I will only start it if it is strictly necessary. That's because I don't realize the effects that the operation of a heater can have in an aquarium without water movement and hermetically sealed. There is a possibility that the surface of the water will be covered by a plant that will grow faster, and the plants below will die in the lack of light. But the plants are the filter of this aquarium. That would quickly lead to the end of this ecosystem. But if there was a light source right in the water, the ecosystem could survive longer. So I'm also going to install these LEDs that can work underwater. I will only use this light source if absolutely necessary. Although it seems like too much equipment, I didn't stop there. This is because if the balance of the closed ecosystem is destabilized, this equipment can extend its life. Or not. Is water circulation necessary in this closed ecosystem? And if algae grows on the aquarium glass, I will clean it with this magnetic brush. In this capsule are the eggs of Moina macrocopa. They will hatch in a few days. The fish will feed on these water fleas. If you are interested in how you can feed your fish endlessly with this pill, I recommend this video. I marked the water level to see if it will change. The aquarium lid must be resistant not to deteriorate over time, transparent, so that the light passes through it and allow a very good seal. Even if I found a thicker foil, it still wouldn't meet these conditions, so I had to sacrifice this cube. More specifically, it is an acrylic display box. I intend to use one of its sides as a lid. It is exactly what I need. However, I am having trouble removing one of the sides. One end has come loose, but it's still holding, and I'm afraid to force it so it doesn't break. I have no idea how I'm going to remove it, but I read on Google that isopropyl alcohol can help. I don't know if I did something wrong, but my opinion is that it had no effect. And I managed to break a side of the acrylic display. So I sought advice from other specialists. But nothing worked. So I had to cut it using an electric saw. The specialist in me managed to cut it. However, a small piece broke off in one of the corners. I don't think it will be a problem. I decided to place the LEDs, one on each side, and the third in front to provide the best possible lighting. But I didn't like how it looked, so I moved it to the inside of the lid. I have built several aquariums using silicone, so gluing this cover should not be a problem. Within seconds, the inside of the aquarium glass fogged up, and all the fish were at the surface of the water. Fish don't usually behave like this. It's strange to see them all at the surface of the water. It's as if they know something. It's as if they sense what awaits them. Have I made a mistake with this type of closed, self-sustaining ecosystem? There is a strong smell of silicone in the room where this aquarium is located. Of course, this smell is also trapped inside the aquarium. Does this pose a danger to the life of all creatures in this ecosystem? And as if that weren't enough, all the snails began to rise to the surface of the water. If nothing bad happens to this ecosystem by tomorrow, it may still have a chance. The next day, I checked the aquarium right away. The fish are alive. The danger has not passed, but it is a victory to see this ecosystem hermetically sealed because I worked extremely hard to bring it to this point. I don't know how many hours or days of life this self-sustaining, hermetically sealed ecosystem has, but this will be day 1. The steam quickly turned into water droplets. I inspected the seals again, especially in sensitive areas, to make sure they were perfect. The pH and ammonia levels are good, but I don't understand why all the snails started moving on the surface of the water. And the betta fish has been sitting in a corner of the tank since yesterday. But I think the most sensitive creatures in this ecosystem are the shrimp, and they seem to be doing well. The next day, the betta fish started moving around. It is probably looking for food. Let's not forget that this is a closed ecosystem, and the fish feed exclusively on the live prey they hunt. I was counting on them eating water fleas, but it seems they eat some tiny worms. There should be 4 fish in this aquarium. I realized that I hadn't seen one of the fish for a few days. No matter how hard I looked for it, I couldn't see it. I was surprised to see that the plants started to pearl. This did not happen before putting the lid on. Even so, let's not forget that these plants do not receive any carbon dioxide or other fertilizers from outside. Some plants aren't doing so well and have lost their leaves, but they're being eaten by snails. Without the snails, the dead plant matter would increase the nitrate levels in the ecosystem, which could lead to the death of the entire ecosystem. And now I realize that I unintentionally introduced these snails into this ecosystem. I started to get a little worried. Even if all the plants would grow healthy, it would still not guarantee that this ecosystem would survive. From my experience with self-sustaining ecosystems, when a plant grows too fast, it means that nutrients are consumed too quickly. Nutrient regeneration takes time. To adjust this equation, the duration and intensity of the light can be reduced. Because the LED lamp I use allows for the adjustment of the light intensity, I will only reduce the light intensity, the lighting time remaining 8 hours a day. On the 7th day, I saw 2 things that made me happy. I saw the mysterious fish. I hadn't seen it before gluing the cover, and I was a little worried. The second thing, I saw that a female red cherry shrimp is carrying eggs. Another good thing. Although almost 2 weeks have passed, there are still water fleas in the water. I expected the fish to hunt them in the first days, but it seems I was wrong. One of the plants has grown and is touching one of the water tests. Does anyone know if this can affect what the tester indicates? Although I wasn't expecting this, there are a lot of dead snails. I was looking at the dead snail shells when I saw something suspicious in the substrate. The presence of these worms in the substrate shows that this ecosystem is self-sustaining. In this substrate, there are also bacteria that transform all the dirt into nutrients that the plants feed on. In normal aquariums where a filter is used and the substrate is siphoned, these bacteria die because they have nothing to eat. Using plant fertilizers has the same effect, and the beneficial bacteria will not survive. These mysterious gas bubbles accumulate in the substrate. They contain various substances, including carbon dioxide, which provides plants with some of the nutrients they need to grow. One day I noticed that when the heater is working, there is a slight movement of the water. I had observed the same thing in an older ecosystem where the water heater caused water movement. It's been 28 days since I sealed this tank. In all this time, I haven't used a filter or fed the fish. I haven't changed the water or added any plant fertilizer. Leave a comment now and I will personally respond to all the first 100 comments. From time to time, I can see how drops of water fall back into the water. The mysterious fish changed the color of its head. Not knowing anything about this fish, I thought that a colorful fish is a healthy one. After a month, you can still see water fleas swimming in the water. This makes me think that the fish are not starving. Unfortunately, I was wrong. The fish hadn't turned blue because it was feeling fine. On the contrary, something was wrong with it. The next day, I inspected the ecosystem better to find a reason why that fish died. I didn't find anything suspicious. Everything looked good under the given conditions. But I noticed a large number of snail shells. I think there are 3 reasons why that fish could have died. 1. Starvation. 2. Because its head had turned blue, I suspect it could have been due to the lack of a filter in the water. 3. Because of the accumulation of toxins in the water. For a few weeks, I was busy with another project, creating an ecosystem in a jar, while also publishing the respective video. A few weeks later, I had some guests over. I was pretty busy with them when one of the guests asked me why I had sealed the aquarium lid. I explained why, and the curious guest checked to see if the aquarium lid was really sealed. He was surprised to find out that I had sealed the lid almost 2 months ago, and the fish was still alive. Then he asked me what was with this line. I replied that that was the water level when I glued the lid. After which, the guest asked me if I was not afraid that the aquarium would explode. I asked, "What do you mean? I thought he was joking." Then I realized that he was serious. This ecosystem is hermetically sealed, and the plants and fish have grown. This has increased the volume of water, and the pressure inside the aquarium has risen. The air at the water's surface is under pressure. And if all that pressure builds up and has nowhere to go, the aquarium can explode, just like a balloon. On the same day, I noticed that one of the suction cups of the LED attached to the lid had come loose. I'm no better fish expert, but it doesn't seem very happy. The water began to turn cloudy. Two days later, the color of the water became even darker. I can't find any explanation for this. The only thing that changed is that the LED lamp that was on the inside of the lid fell into the water. The 3 remaining fish do not seem to be affected by the color of the water, but I am still concerned about the large number of dead snails. I can't figure out why the water is even more cloudy. Could a single dead fish in the aquarium have caused this instability? If a single dead fish caused the water to become so murky, that means the balance of this ecosystem is very fragile. Although the plants are growing, they refuse to break through the surface. They prefer to bend and twist so that their tips point toward the substrate. This growth pattern is unusual because I have the same plant in another low-tech aquarium, where it has grown tall enough to reach the surface and touch the air. I haven't been able to see the 3rd fish for a week, and the better fish doesn't seem to be feeling well. For this reason, I have decided to stop this experiment in order to save the lives of the remaining fish. But unfortunately, I didn't move fast enough. This is the only fish left alive. I assume the other fish died of starvation. Starvation is not the best word. This is because in the aquarium you can see many small creatures that the fish can feed on. Maybe the fish needed a more diverse food source, or the fact that they only ate live food was not very healthy. Although I saw shrimp carrying eggs, I did not see any baby shrimp. But it is surprising that the shrimp have an intense red color and are large in size, larger than the same shrimp living in another aquarium. I've reached a point where I don't know what to do with this hermetically sealed ecosystem. Should I open the lid and save the surviving fish, or leave the ecosystem closed to see what happens to the other species? But what if the aquarium glass cracks from the pressure? I took the risk and didn't do anything, and time has passed. The fish is still alive. The two tests indicate that the water quality is good. This aquarium is the best example of a closed aquatic ecosystem. I have shown that I did not perform any water changes, did not use a filter, and did not use plant fertilizers. If I were to start this project over, I would skip this plant that has spread all over the tank. I would know which fish to use, and I wouldn't put so much aquarium equipment in the tank. I never used that equipment anyway. Since it's been sitting in water for over half a year, I'm going to test this LED light to see if it works. I was a little nervous, but it seems that the LED lamp works perfectly even after being submerged in water for so long. This hermetically sealed ecosystem has answered many of my questions, but at the same time it has led me to ask new ones. I intend to maintain this ecosystem and monitor its progress. An aquarium with no water changes and no filter. A hermetically sealed ecosystem.